sports, a bridge that brings people together. And here in the Commonwealth, it's no different. From the gridiron to the hardwood and beyond, we all have a team we love to talk about. Now for the teams you care about, here's Heartland Sports Live with Trevor Rice.
Welcome into another Monday of Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM, and we live stream every show on ESPNRadio1061.com. You can find a link on my Twitter account at Radio Trevor Rice to go back and listen to every single show, just in case you missed a interview that you wanted to hear, or if you would like to go and listen to it after the show each and every week, you can go on to ESPNKY.com. The show will be uploaded on there. Well, a lot of sporting news going on here in the off season, even though you typically wouldn't expect it to happen necessarily. Basketball, of course, a lot of free agency moves going on, a lot of players switching teams now. Baseball, the Reds ended up losing a couple over the weekend, ended up losing to the Indians both Saturday and Sunday in lopsided affairs. Of course, tonight we began the All-Star break. Home Run Derby All-Star game this week, so be looking forward to that. I think I'm going to schedule that for ESPN Radio here throughout anything that you can expect. Expect the Home Run Derby. Expect the All-Star game. I think we're going to air both of those here on 106.1 ESPN Radio, so stay tuned for both of those. Well, coming up this hour, I have a jam-packed show. Speaking of the Reds, we will be talking to Tommy Thrall, who is with the Reds Radio Network. We're going to be talking about the team and with him coming up here in the next segment. And then in segment 3 this week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, the Trucks, the Xfinity, and the Cup Series all going to be at Kentucky Motor Speedway this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. If you have not gotten your tickets, you can always do so at Kentucky Speedway's website. And we'll talk to Tim Bray in segment 3 of today's show to get some insight what we can expect this week, because a lot of fans unhappy about the affairs that happened at Daytona International Raceway or Speedway yesterday, as it was a rain-shortened event. And then fans said afterwards that the rain let up, it just completely stopped after they called the race. A lot of fans not happy with the outcome when you give you give the trophy to a winner who didn't exactly complete an entire race. It's a rain-shortened event. Nobody likes that. A lot of people still think the race should have, since there's lights at Daytona International Speedway, that there should have been a completion of the race late Saturday night. To each their own, which that could very well happen at Kentucky Speedway, where there's lights. You can complete an event. Heck, you could complete it at 3 in the morning if you wanted to. Now, whether or not people are willing to stay up that late is another question, but still, you can still finish a race whenever, because there is indeed lights at Kentucky Speedway as well. So we'll talk to Tim Bray, Director of Communications, coming up here in segment 3 of today's show, and so I'll be looking forward to that. Reds talk, NASCAR talk this week. It is the summer here in the Bluegrass, and you got to talk about that stuff because it is indeed July. Happy belated 4th of July to you as well, as we get back from the extended holiday break. A lot of you taking Friday off as well. Let's talk about some sad news that happened last week. And as a bigger dude who is trying to go through the process of losing weight myself, I can totally relate to this next story. Jared Lorenzen passing away last week. Of course, throughout his college career, I mean, you can go back to high school, pro, just dealing with the pressure of weight and gaining. For some people, it's not as easy to lose the weight as what you would expect. And like I said, that's why I can relate to Jared Lorenzen myself, is because I'm trying to get in that process as well. But you look at his historic career, passing away last week, and we just when somebody passes away, all you can do is go back and think about everything that they accomplished, everything that they did, what they meant. And Jared Lorenzen was so much more than the game of football itself. I myself never got the chance to meet him one-on-one. I would have loved to. As a big dude, I can relate. I could have hit it off with Jared very easily. And he was a very personable guy as it sounds like from many people. Just hearing Matt Jones, seeing some tweets coming from Ryan Lemon, of course, who you can catch Kentucky Sports Radio Monday through Friday here on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 10 until noon. But he's just one of those guys that I could have related with very easily, and just we could have hung out. Just because even though there's a few years separation, I think, he was 38, so there was 7 years between us. I think I could have gotten along with Jared pretty well. I remember just growing up, just watching him on television, just seeing Kentucky. You didn't get to see Kentucky very often just because they weren't the house name. But if there was one person who kind of made Kentucky get a little bit of the spotlight, it's for the fact that they had a guy by the name of Jared Lorenzen with his size be able to do things that most normal-sized men could not even pull off. These trickeration throws, his ability to run. I think that's the thing that it gets overlooked a lot of the times, is his ability to actually run and not just run, but plow through people and create the extra yard or two that necessarily you don't look at the stat sheet and see. So Jared Lorenzen's ability, not only on the field, but his personality and just his likeness off the field, is going to be deeply missed here in Kentucky, and that's why it really sucked to see that, because this is a guy that I had grown up and I had seen play in different games and saw some craziness when he was at his time at Kentucky playing football. I mean, there's a reason why he's in the Kentucky Hall of Fame. Not only was he good, he represented the school, he represented himself and the state. Went on to the pro level, in which, as you know, it's very difficult to get to that level. And a man his size, you're thinking, how in the heck can he go to the next level as a quarterback? Well, he did. Was he a big dude? Yes, he was. Did he still have a rock of an arm and was pretty accurate? Yes, he definitely had an accurate arm. And, man, being a backup, yes, you're saying, oh, he was a backup. Well, there's a reason why he was a backup, because he was at least good enough to compete at the pro level if his name was to be mentioned or if he was needed. Ended up being the backup of that 2007-2008 Giants team, who ended up beating what was then the undefeated Patriots in the Super Bowl. So not only did he have a tremendous run at Kentucky, which I think he's still the all-time passing leader, right, at Kentucky. I have to go back and look at the stats, but I think he is. And his ability to not only get it done at the college level at a school who wasn't known for football, now they're starting to become a bigger name in the SEC East. But even then, let's be honest, Kentucky football was not that good. And Jared Lorenzen, a Kentucky boy, going in there and creating some miracles at times. That's what you loved about him. Yeah, I mean, you can toss, one of those nicknames that he inherited over the years. Come on. Didn't faze him. Kept playing. And he was just himself on the football field. And I think that's what people appreciate most about Jared Lorenzen, is because as much as maybe people wanted to hate on him for his weight, and I'm sure you get it. If you grew up a bigger dude, a bigger girl, listening right now, it happened. I dealt with it. We all do. But it's the way that he handled himself, not only on the field, but in his personal life, was absolutely amazing. And Jared Lorenzen is going to be deeply missed. And it was a sad day last Wednesday when his family announced the passing of Jared Lorenzen. Now, I know we're a few days past the fact, and, maybe some people had forgotten. Well, I didn't. I wanted to talk about it on today's show because I didn't necessarily get to in any other format, just because I use this 1 hour that I have with you guys per week to do so, talking area football, area basketball, baseball, the top sports in which you're accustomed to hearing all the other guys talk about at the pro level here on 106.1 ESPN Radio. I wanted to at least talk about that because Jared Lorenzen is going to go down. He was a legend in this state. And even though I did not get to meet him, I felt like I knew him just a little bit, just from whether his time on KSR or just getting to watch him on TV. Such an amazing talent, and he will be missed. His personality will be missed, especially. Jared Lorenzen, only 38 years of age. Well, coming up this hour, coming up next segment, I should say, will be Tommy Thrall, who is with the Reds Radio Network. We're going to be talking about the Redlegs coming up in segment number 2. I will be talking NASCAR. Kentucky Speedway will be loaded this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights, as Tim Bray, Director of Communications, will join me on the program as well. It's Heartland Sports Live, and it's powered by CC Power Sports, where you can get a new season or a new jet ski for an incredibly low season opening price. CC Power Sports, they are located off exit 121, just south of the Snyder at Brooks Road off I-65. That's CC Power Sports in Brooks, Kentucky. Trevor Rice with you, and I will be back coming up here in just a bit. Let's talk some Reds right after this on 106.1 ESPN Radio. It's Heartland Sports Live. And welcome back into Heartland Sports Live. Joining me right now is Tommy Thrall, Reds radio announcer, and of course he just signed on with the team, came up to Cincinnati first time in February of earlier this year, and he's been doing his thing. And is it kind of a unique situation, Tommy? I want to welcome you to the show, first of all, as you kind of transitioned Marty Brenneman's final year. How is it working with Marty?
Oh, man, it is. It's incredible. It's funny because, it's one of those deals where you really realize how important it is to have fun every day, because he's got that down pat. I mean, he is always having a good time, no matter what it is that we're doing. You endure your fair share of abuse, as well you should. Somebody in the like I am in my first year. So, but that's been a lot of fun. I mean, he just, like I said, he keeps it fun all the time. You get to see how kind-hearted he is, the way he prepares. I mean, it would be, I think, easy for somebody that's been doing it for as long as he has to just kind of show up, go through the motions, and do the games, but he's not. I mean, he's constantly reading, he's constantly preparing, getting ready for the next game, and that's something I really admire about him. So there's a lot to take from this year, and it's been a great time so far.
One of the things that I learned from Marty here a couple of years ago when I first met him is this is radio. I'm going to come to work comfortable, and that's how he dresses when he goes onto the broadcast. Are you going to take that same approach?
Yeah, I mean, I guess to some extent. I mean, he likes his fancy shirts, I will tell you that. But yeah, nice shirts and jeans. That's about how he approaches it. Jeff Brantley, the Cowboy, he's kind of got the same approach. So you look around the league and see how other people do it, and that seems to be the universal dress code for broadcasters at this level. Just stay casual and make sure you look presentable and professional at all times while still being casual.
Yeah, when you think of the game of baseball, announcers, I think, especially on the radio side, are, I guess, a classic. You have a whole bunch of these veteran names who have retired over the past few years, and Marty's going to be another one of those. What's it like just knowing that you're going to be kind of filling those shoes?
I really, to be honest, try not to look at that. Nothing's really guaranteed past this year. So I think if you get wrapped up in all of that, then it can be kind of tough. But whoever it is that's in that seat next year, I mean, you just have to keep in mind that you're never really going to replace somebody like Marty. I mean, he's going to live on with this franchise forever. I mean, he's always going to be synonymous with with the Reds, and that's a good thing. In a situation like that, you have to come in, you have to be the best version you can be of yourself, and whatever happens beyond that is kind of just out of your control. But you got to show up every day, ready to work, and give the fans what they deserve, which is a really high quality broadcast, because that's what they're accustomed to. And that goes way back in Reds broadcasting history. I mean, look at before Marty, Al Michaels, Joe Nuxall was there forever, and it's amazing when you look at the legacy of Reds broadcasting. There's a lot, for whoever that would be to live up to, and I think what it just comes down to is you've got to be yourself, and you've just got to respect the position and do the best job you possibly can.
Tommy Thrall of Reds Radio joining us here on Heartland Sports Live. When you came up from Pensacola, that's where you're at right now, talking to us from, of course, the All-Star break this week. Let's talk about what maybe you saw in this team. A whole new look here for 2019. And it seems like this team, it took a little bit, but they finally started to gel. Starting pitching seems to be pretty good so far here this year. It's just putting together a string of victories. What is it about this Reds team right now, Tommy, that is just not allowing them to get over that hump quite yet?
I think the biggest thing for him right now is just offensive consistency. And I kind of talked to David Bell about that a little bit in the pregame interview yesterday. So what is the big thing you want to see this team do consistently in the second half? Where's the one area where you really want to see improvement? And that was the thing that there were a few things, obviously, but that was one of the big ones that he pointed to, is that he really wants to see this team really start to hit consistently like they're capable of. And we're starting to see that. It looked like for a little bit Eugenio Suarez was starting to kind of come out of his slump a little bit, which was extremely encouraging. Well, he's kind of fallen back in that rut a little bit, but hopefully it's only temporary. Yasiel Puig is hitting lasers everywhere. Jesse Winker's hitting the ball hard right now. Votto finished the first half outstanding, and he was as hot as he could be. I think he finished the first half as hot as he had been at any stretch, in the early part of the season. So that's an encouraging sign. And I think once you start to get those big bats going, and the fact that this team was able to tread water as well as they were while those guys were slumping, because Puig didn't get off to a great start. Votto, we know what he did. Suarez, those are guys that this team is really going to count on. And factor in that they went through almost the entire first half of the season without Scooter Gennett. So getting him back and getting him to where he can be offensively, I think that's going to make a huge difference. So the fact that the team is where they are right now, I think is not necessarily a bad thing. And I think they're certainly poised to be able to do something in the second half, but it's all going to start with that offense. If they can start to hit a little more consistently, the pitching was outstanding. The pitching was certainly good enough to compete. And now we'll just see where it goes from there.
The Reds split 2 games with the Indians earlier this season. They kind of just fell off the map here over the weekend, losing 7-2 on Saturday, 11-1 yesterday. Is there anything we could take from those games? I mean, it's not National League Central play, but it's not really the look you want to have going into the All-Star break.
No, and I get that, but that's a good Indians team, and I think you have to kind of take a closer look at what they did do against the Cubs and the Brewers earlier in that homestand. The one thing I think, if you're to be concerned, is that the bullpen got knocked around a little bit there in those games. The starting pitching has been pretty strong, but I think in the second half maybe you want to see a few more innings out of your starting pitchers, and that's for nothing more than just to keep the bullpen a little more fresh. I think they did a great job through the whole first half. I think the starters did a good job to keep the team in games on a daily basis. And the other thing I think that's important to look at, too, is we talk about the bullpen and the workload of the bullpen, but they're right in the middle of the pack as far as innings out of relievers. So it's not like they're being overworked more than any other team. It's just the way the game is now, and that's the way it goes. Teams are just relying a little bit more on their relievers, and I think some of that has to do with the fact that the relief pitching is a lot better now than it was, even 10 years ago. So, but no, as far as cause for alarm in that series, I don't think so. I mean, that's a good Indians team, ran into a couple of really good pitchers, and that'll happen. So The Indians certainly have a lineup that's starting to heat up. They showed that against the Reds the last couple of days. So it is what it is. Not exactly the high note you want to end the first half on, but still a good homestand overall. And like I said, still just 4.5 games out of first place, even though they're in last. And the Central still right there in the thick of things.
Yeah, definitely. 41-46 overall, 4.5 games back in the National League Central. Talk about the league so far, because it seems like whenever the Reds play a National League Central rival, it seems like they are competing very well this season, and especially you just mentioned the Cubs, and I could think of a few other series with the Brewers. They've had some strong moments against the Cardinals, Pirates. I mean, they've had their moments against all of the teams in the league so far here in the first half of the season. Do you see that continuing here in the second half?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is a team that really, handles the division well, and that's an encouraging sign. They had a couple of tough series against the Brewers earlier this year, but that was a little bit more when I think the team was struggling too. So. But as they've heated up and as they've started to play better, yeah, they've handled their division really well. And I think that's what makes it so exciting. I mean, look at the Pirates. They were falling off the map. They were in a free fall. In fact, the Reds passed them for a little while. Now, all of a sudden, they're playing well, and they're back to just a game under 500. They even got to the 500 mark for a little bit, but now they've won 2 in a row. They're 1 under. The Cardinals, they're on a very similar roller coaster to the Reds. They just didn't have a 1-8 start, so they're right at 500. And then the Brewers and Cubs. I think the thing that you look at, maybe where this may sound crazy, but maybe where the Reds actually have an edge. I think the Reds bullpen is as good or better than everybody else in the division. I think that's where everybody else kind of falls into trouble. Is they just, the Brewers have Josh Hader. The Cubs went out and got Craig Kimbrell. Kimbrell hasn't been that great. I mean, he's made a few appearances since he's joined the Cubs. I think he's got 1 save, another blown save, another game where he didn't pitch that well. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on there with the division is how good are these bullpens going to be, and are they going to do anything to improve those situations? Because in this day and age, you've got to have a good bullpen to be successful.
Tommy Thrall of the Reds Radio Network joining us here on the show. Let's talk players now. Scooter Gennett, when do we see him maybe fully implemented into the lineup?
I think after the break, he kind of tweaked his opposite groin, the one that, the opposite of the one that kept him out through most of the first half a few days ago. He was available to pinch hit the last couple of days, so it's nothing too serious. It's certainly not to the extent that the first one was hurt. So I think he'll be back in full strength after the All-Star break. And the question with him is when does his timing come around? Because that's something with that bat you really want to see him start to hit the way he's capable of doing. And we hadn't seen that yet, but you can't really expect a guy that's only played in 6 games to be, picking up right where he left off last season. So I think that's going to come around for him, hopefully sooner rather than later, but I think you'll start seeing him on a daily basis pretty much once the second half gets started in Colorado.
Yasiel Puig, a fan favorite, a guy who's come along here over the last several weeks. Is this a guy that you want to keep going into the 2020 season?
Well, that's a great question. And that's, he's an exciting player. You mentioned the fans absolutely love this guy. He's an electric player. He got off to a slow start, but now that he's heating up, we're really starting to see what he's capable of. Depends on how he finishes on how much money he's going to want. And that's where, if you're the Reds, you really have to kind of figure that out. What's the balance there? Is it worth what it's going to cost to keep him, or can you get him at a bargain and then maybe it is. I don't know. It would certainly be fun to see him stick around because of how well liked he is and how exciting of a player as he is. I mean, look at what he does just defensively. The way he can run down fly balls is outstanding. His arm, even without throwing guys out, has saved runs because teams don't want to run on him. And then he can turn what looks to be a ground ball into an infield hit. We've seen him do that a few times. I mean, he really he plays really, really hard. And as far as the clubhouse goes, that was one of the things I think that he had kind of a bad reputation coming in. They love him in the clubhouse. I mean, he is a guy that is really, really popular. He keeps things loose. Like I said, he plays the game hard. He kind of leads by example in that regard, and I don't think he's been anything other than great for this team since he's joined it. So it'll be interesting to see what the Reds decide to do moving forward with him.
I've seen stories that read, starting off, the Reds have some of the best starting pitching in all of baseball right now. Would you agree with that, first of all? And second, do you see this trend continuing for the second half of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. The numbers certainly back that up because of what they've done in this first half. And I think the thing that's impressed me is Tanner Roark is just a guy that really goes out and competes every time he gets the ball every fifth day. He's kind of a guy that leads by example, like I said, with Puig, and that holds true with the starters, too. I mean, he's a guy that when he gets the ball in his hand, he wants to go out there, and if it were up to him, he'd go 9 innings every time. So I like what he's done. I think he's kind of stabilizing in that rotation. Sonny Gray's done an excellent job. It seems like Sonny might be taking some steps and getting better as things go, too, which is very encouraging. And then you look at some of the younger pitchers. DeSclafani and Tyler Mahle have been inconsistent at times. Both do a great job of competing, and both keep you in games, which is good. And then Luis Castillo. I mean, this guy has already generated some Cy Young discussion through the first half. The steps that he has taken are tremendous, and I think that gives you. I think that gives you hope for some of those other guys, like a Tyler Mahle. Maybe he can make similar steps moving forward into the next couple of seasons. But what Castillo has done has been incredible. I mean, that changeup is just silly. The way he can make guys look, and the thing that people say about the changeup, which I think is funny, is he can sit there and tell you it's coming, throw it, and you still won't hit it. That's how good it is. He's just really learned how to use that off his fastball, and I don't see any reason why it would change in the second half. If anything, these guys may just continue to get stronger because there's still room for growth for guys. I think like Castillo, I still think there's that he can even take another step forward, and then guys like DeSclafani and Mahle, I think, just continue to grow.
And then you mentioned offensive consistency, how it hasn't been there necessarily here in the first half of this season. That's going to be one of the things they need to improve on going forward. But who maybe in the lineup have you seen that maybe isn't getting it done right now, do you think may step it up here in the second half that we'll be talking about?
Well, I think the guy I mentioned earlier, Eugenio Suarez, is one that just he just hasn't hit the way he's capable of consistently, and I still think he's a good enough hitter that he'll be fine. Joey Votto, it looks like has turned the corner, which is extremely encouraging. But Suarez is just, I mean, he has really struggled. 248 average right now. He still has 20 home runs. I think that's worth noting. Despite this prolonged slump that he's been in, he still leads the team in home runs. He's still productive because he's still driving guys in. But I think you're going to see the average tick up a little closer to what he's used to doing on a daily basis. Another guy that I think doesn't get talked about enough. He was talked about, I think, more before he got here than since he arrived, and that's Nick Senzel. He has really been kind of a stabilizing force in the lineup because he gives you competitive at-bats. He gives you great at-bats every time he goes up. And you can put him either in the middle of the order when you want him to be in a situation to drive guys in, or you can put him at the top of the order and be a table setter. He does a great job in either spot. So it seems to me when he got to the big leagues and when he joined the Reds, that's when things really started to turn around for this team, and I don't think that's a coincidence. You look at the numbers, I don't think they jump off the page at you. He's hitting just a little over 260, but he's just so competitive. His at-bats are so good, and he's a guy that I think is just going to keep getting better into the second half as well.
We definitely hope they keep improving because only 4.5 games out of the top of the National League Central standings right now. So definitely going to put in some work here in the end of July into August. Hopefully they can get back into the thick of things as we look forward to the second half of the season now after the All-Star break. Tommy Thrall of the Reds Radio Network joining us here on Heartland Sports Live. Tommy, I appreciate your time and hope to have you back on soon.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Had fun.
Well, going on this week, NASCAR returns to Kentucky Speedway, the Trucks, Xfinity, and the Cup Series Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night this week. We're going to be talking about the races with Tim Bray, Director of Communications, coming up right after this. You're listening to Heartland Sports Live on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM, and we're live streaming on ESPN Radio 1061.com. Welcome back into Heartland Sports Live. Kentucky Speedway will be jam-packed this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night for the Trucks, Xfinity, and the Cup Series. And, of course, we've had him on the last couple of years. Why not have him on again this year? Tim Bray, Director of Communications at Kentucky Speedway. Tim, how have you been?
I've been good. It's exciting to not only talk about it, but execute NASCAR triple header here once again at the track.
Let's go ahead and go back to this past weekend, and I don't know if Kentucky Speedway has necessarily faced this challenge yet of having rain in the area, and I don't anticipate it happening this weekend either, knocking on wood as we speak. But you go back to this Daytona race, a lot of fans angry that how the race ended yesterday, them calling it early, and then many fans said on social media that a few minutes after they called it, it actually stopped raining. How much does the track have to say? Do they have a voice in that concern on when a race can go, or do you have any idea how all of that works out, Tim?
Well, first of all, that's a tough situation because you've got lightning in the area, and we are under those NASCAR rules, and if it's 6 miles out or 8 miles out, you have to take precautions. That is for sure, and it's just like any other sport. I'm very involved with football too, and there is a lightning clock for that. So it is very frustrating. There is no doubt about it. But safety first. It doesn't matter if it's on the track or in the stands, and we collaborate with NASCAR. But we're the venue, and they're the series. They're the governing body, so they have the final say, and they do take a lot into consideration, but it's all for the safety of everybody involved.
A new winner this past weekend, and maybe we might see that at Kentucky Speedway this year with the trucks. I mean, we saw some first-time winners last year at Kentucky Speedway in the lower series. Martin Truex Jr. winning in the Cup Series. What do we expect at this year's races, Tim? Because a new rules package in place for 2019 compared to last year. I would imagine the track's changed a little bit over the last year as well, so we might see some different racing conditions, maybe?
I hope so. I mean, first of all, that new aero package is working on the mile and a half. I mean, just a lot of side-by-side action. It's what the fans want, and there's no doubt that the 1.5-mile configurations have done very, very well, and not only people watching, but those in the stands as well. So we're actively feeling good about what we're seeing, and we hope that continues here. I can tell you that we have been making sure that we prepare our track as what NASCAR wants, what Goodyear wants, and we've got our tire dragging out there. I just left the track a few minutes ago. I was in the infield, and we're putting a lot of rubber down in 1 and 2, and also 3 and 4, and so that's going to be important. The guys have to have confidence in running multiple grooves on these mile and a halves, and if they do that, they put on quite a show.
Yeah, definitely. And would you expect the groove to maybe expand even a little more so this year? You're always kind of wondering how that's going to go after a repaving job, which you had, 4 years ago now?
16, and this track is definitely aging, and that's a good thing. And we feel very strongly that, the 17 degrees in turns 1 and 2, and the 14 degrees, which we haven't done anything to 3 and 4 necessarily, just make it a very unique racetrack. And some of the drivers are saying that they've been prepping cars in the shops for weeks getting ready for this thing, and so that's important, and I think that will give fans a real run for their money. I mean, this is going to be a really good event because of the multiple grooves, the different banking, and let's not discount the fact that the track starts in daylight and ends the race at nighttime. So that changes the complexion of how this track runs too. So I wouldn't want to be a crew chief right now.
We have Tim Bray, Director of Communications at Kentucky Speedway on Heartland Sports Live. We've the usuals that we're talking about there at Kentucky Speedway every year. Kyle Busch, Brad Keselowski, you can even throw Martin Truex Jr. in there now, all having strong seasons this year, and they've been some of the front runners and favorites at Kentucky Motor Speedway in the Cup Series the last several years since things have really started to heat up in the month of July. And can we maybe throw in another name or two, or are we just looking at those three mainly?
No, I think that Gibbs and Penske are going to run up front. I mean, there's no doubt. Martin just unloads fast. It's just the way he is. I mean, he has taken to this track. Nobody has gone back to back to back in Cup. He has every opportunity in the world to be up there. Kyle just absolutely just takes to this track. He's the best restarter in the business, and he and Adam Stevens communicate as well as any crew chief driver in the sport. And then Brad, he's won 3 of the 8, so I mean, and I think he's got every shot at it too. But let's not discount the current champion in the sport and Brad's teammate, Joey Logano. Logano in the old configuration won 3 straight from the pole with the then Nationwide Series, and let me tell you, Joey's overdue. I mean, he knows how to run this racetrack, and so I would think that Joey Logano would be in the mix. A couple of those other guys in the Gibbs group, and let's not forget about Stuart Haas. I mean, Kevin Harvick has been running very strong. I think the Fords will run well, but the key is to just get out of the gate, run up front, get in that clean air, and let's not forget about the Chevrolets, who have never won a Cup race here in 8 years of competition, and which is hard to believe, but this may be their year. I mean, they've got some guys that are running really well, and we'll see what happens, but I think they're in the mix.
Yeah, you mentioned the bow ties. It seems like Team Hendrick has actually started to come along a little bit, and you're starting to see them run in the top 5 here recently.
Yeah, look at Jimmy. Jimmy should have won a race in, 2013 here, with Matt Kenseth won it. And then because we got some rain and we had to finish the next day, but he spun his tires on a late restart, and he dominated the race. But old 7-time's been getting it together here lately, and I think he finished 3rd yesterday, and he was really up front most of the race in Chicagoland on the last mile and a half that these guys ran. So I could see him being very strong, and Chase Elliott has done everything but win here. So there's 2 names to look out for.
Let's talk about the trucks in Xfinity Series. A local boy won the truck race last year, and of course you're always seeing rising stars come up through those 2 series. What maybe do you expect Thursday and Friday night?
Well, the cool thing about it is they're both back to defend. Christopher Bell in the Alsco 300 on Friday night, and in addition to Ben Rhodes on Thursday night. Although don't look for the 41 out there, look for the 99 with Ben on piloting that truck. But both of those guys should run up front. Ben is right in the thick of things in the points standings for the Gander Outdoors Truck Series, and I think Christopher has got every opportunity to add to his win total as well. But Tyler Reddick's back with the Xfinity Series championship in tow, so he and Christopher Bell could very easily run up front. And I'll tell you something else, Justin Haley's got a lot of confidence right now, and he's never won an Xfinity race, but you might want to pay attention to Justin Haley on Friday night.
You're one of those guys. You're trying to get as many butts in seats as possible in those smaller series. What are your thoughts? I've never asked you this on NASCAR limiting the amount of races that the Cup Series can participate in, because in years past, I think we would have seen maybe 3 or 4 at least. At the very least, the Xfinity Series this week. But you have those numbers lower and lower because they are only allowed X amount of races per year. What are your thoughts on that?
I go both ways. I like to see guys that are named drivers competing, but I don't want them to dominate all the time. I want there's plenty of parity in the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series, but let them come out and get some seat time and fulfill those sponsor commitments. But we're not going to see Kyle Busch in either one of them this year, which is kind of unusual because he usually runs at least 2 of the events, and he would run Friday night and Saturday night. But Ross Chastain may be it. I mean, we'll see him probably in all 3. There may be a couple of others with some underfunded teams, but I'd like to see those guys compete for it. I can remember back when we had our September race for the Xfinity Series. That's some of the best racing we've had, but it was in their playoffs, and in addition to that, there were no Cup drivers in the field. That they're going to go hard, and the other thing is that it develops some new stars. Christopher Bell and Tyler Reddick. Both of those guys are going to get to the next level. I'm sure if there's a ride opens up, I think there's no question that they are, if not ready now, they will be ready by the end of the season. That's for sure, to move to the Cup Series. So I can see both sides of the coin.
Tim Bray, Director of Communications, joining us on Heartland Sports Live. Kind of staying on that note a little bit. A couple of years ago, the Cup Series, NASCAR wanted to start this youth movement at the Cup level. And I don't know if it was the rules package or just the fact that you have a lot of these veteran drivers over the last handful of seasons starting to retire. And, now these young guys are having to develop their own fan base. What are your thoughts on that? And you've seen some facilities, even like Daytona, which they just raced at this past weekend, they actually reduced the amount of seating at facilities like that. Have we seen any impact of that at Kentucky Speedway over the last couple of years? And is there anticipation that at some point, we may have to reduce, or are we going to keep it the same here in the Bluegrass?
Well, I think you're going to see this year even. We've enhanced our seating in the towers, so that meant taking out some seats and giving a drink rail to fans and a little more storage, a little more leg room. So we've adjusted our numbers a little bit. But we're always thinking ahead, trying to, give that fan experience a little bit of a boost, not necessarily just take seats out to take seats out. So we've been, adjusting ours. And we've got Fireball Alley now, which is, millennial play and turn 1. Our hospitality is just going gangbusters down in turn 4. So, it's a different facility than what it was back in, the early days, because this is our 20th season of racing. And you have to keep up with the times. You got to keep up with the fan base and what they want. And, I think this is a good enhancement, but I just don't think you adjust to adjust. I think you try to make it better for those who are putting down their hard-earned money to come here. And the great thing is that it's an event. We've got bullfighting, we've got the Clydesdales, we've got 2 concerts instead of 1, trackside live stages popping with all kinds of driver interviews. There's just so much that happens between when the gates open at 2 and that green flag is waved at 7:30 or 7:40. So we make sure that it's a total experience, and I think those who make the commitment are going to really enjoy it.
You had just mentioned it, and I completely spaced it out because it's hard to believe 20 years already at Kentucky Speedway. What does that mean to not only you, but the people who have worked there in and out throughout the years? Just what does that mean for this state to have a racetrack 20 years active in NASCAR?
Yeah, I think it says quite a bit. I mean, it's a foundation that was laid by Jerry Carroll, Mark Seminary, who's my boss, the general manager here, and others back in 98, 99. First year was 2000, and we limped along, so to speak, with the trucks, and then the next year ended up in 2001 bringing then the Busch Series, and Kevin Harvick won that year, and it just has been a staple now for so long, and Cup came in 11, and Kyle Busch has dominated along with Brad Keselowski, but it has just been a fixture now, and right along the river here, and just south of Cincinnati, and northeast of Louisville, and I think we've got a little bit of a Midwest flair for these guys, and the track's tough, and people love to see side-by-side racing, which we're attempting to give them, and we're also giving them a chance to camp for a week and just beautiful bluegrass, and it's a happening place. I think it's about the third largest city in the Commonwealth when we get going here, starting Tuesday afternoon with the campers coming in.
Yeah, most definitely. Tim Bray, Director of Communications at Kentucky Speedway, joining us on Heartland Sports Live. Tim, real quick, people who are looking to go, I'm sure there's still some seats available for all three races. How can people go and get them some tickets?
Well, I think the best way to do it is KentuckySpeedway.com, and that's the a place that you can get tickets and camping and everything. It'll be right there, or you can dial up 859-578-2300. That's 859-578-2300, and that'll get you connected to our ticket office, and they'll be able to walk you through the process of not only tickets but camping as well. So there are seats available. There are camp spots available in all 7 of our camping areas, everything from the infield to Millionaires Row and Lakeside and Ponderosa and you name it. So it's every one of them's got their own personality, and you can bring your tent, or you can bring your motor home, or your motor coach. It doesn't matter. We're happy to accommodate you.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the Trucks Xfinity Cup Series going on at Kentucky Speedway this week. Make sure you don't miss any of the action. Tim, I appreciate your time as always, and look forward to being up there at the track and spending some time with you guys this weekend.
Well, we look forward to it, and stop by, say hello, and look forward to the next time we talk.
Tim Bray, Director of Communications at Kentucky Speedway, joining us on Heartland Sports Live. I'd like to thank him, as well as Tommy Thrall, for joining me with the Redlegs earlier this hour. And, of course, we'll come back next week. We will get back into our high school 2019 previews, and hopefully I will have Brent Thompson and the North Hardin Trojans in studio to talk about their upcoming 2019 season and what we can expect for the fall. Trevor Rice with you. It's Heartland Sports Live. Thank you to everybody for listening this afternoon. Enjoy the sports week on 106.1 ESPN Radio, 1400 AM, and we upload and live stream every show on ESPN Radio 1061.com. Have a fantastic evening, everybody.